Welcome to the Y Podcast. I'm here with Barbara, Nolan, and Morgan.
Where we discuss mindful learning in the virtual space. Before we get started, we want to take a moment to thank Derek Nelson and his incredible music production class for that fabulous jingle you just heard. Really, thank you guys. It's amazing, and we're really glad to have it as part of our podcast.
Definitely. Thank you.
So we're here to welcome Rebecca Smith, our very own elite educator, as our special guest today. And to kick things off, I'd like to give a little shout out and a little quote from someone very close to you who'd like to encourage you today. So this is what he says. Says Rebecca's work with students is truly remarkable. She currently works with students in American Sign Language as well as teaching. She takes tremendous joy when a student who didn't know any signs when they started can now sign the Be Elite anthem. She is patient and works with a student at their level, building the self-confidence and skill level every single time. From being a CTE teacher to hosting a club for all interested in ASL, her passion to teach, as well as being a lifelong learner, is evident. She loves to spread her passion for ASL and not only instill those skills, but to see them come to fruition in projects. And that's from your very own Nolan Smith.
Yay! Thank you.
So, Rebecca, tell us about your journey to Elite and the virtual space.
Yes. So, as you know, Elite is primarily online, at least in the virtual world. So I had the challenge of really drawing out student voices and hands out of their camera off, kind of what they're used to. They wanted to be their camera off and kind of sit quietly and just absorb. But as we know, sign language is such a visual language. So that task was a hard challenge. And I feel here in the elite virtual teaching world and Elite X has just really broken down those barriers. And my students come and they have their cameras on now and they want to share and they're practicing right along with their fellow peers. And so that's kind of where we are today.
So, what does teacher footprint in productive struggle mean to you?
So for the teacher footprint is knowing when to lead and when to step back. Because I know when I first started this journey, the teacher footprint was always there, that mental, like I have to save my students, if you will. If they don't know a sign, well, then it's my job to teach them. However, when you kind of let them kind of do that productive struggle, I'm not sure if this is the correct sign, but my students feel the confidence to go ahead and try it anyways. And then that's the knowing when to step back. Creating a space for them. We really implemented Mr. Nelson's JFC, or judgment free zone, and so they feel comfortable in making mistakes. And now, I don't know if this is going to come up later on, but I'm so happy to say that I have a student now who just in live sessions will ask his fellow students and won't even rely on me anymore. And that's what we wanted with our teacher footprint. Being non-existent, really, just really letting them step back and let them take over, take that ownership of their own learning and not overshadow their efforts.
I love that.
Can I ask?
Go ahead. No, yeah, sorry.
Just follow up to that. How does it feel to like release? Like I'm so ingrained. Like the way I was taught was like kids need to rely on you, and so how did you even go about discovering that, and like what kind of steps did you take?
Right. So the steps to take were really, I kind of documented the journey, really. I would take little video clips and just kind of note where we were as far as the teaching with intention guide and just that self-analysis and assessment. Rewatching those clips, I could have not said something, let them struggle a little bit longer. And they will do it because it totally builds their confidence and it kind of strengthens their problem solving, and it allows them to say, okay, I don't know it yet, but I will. And I just love that.
I love, so you've already touched on it. But two things that I heard that I love, like, is the intention behind it, right? Like you have to actively work on turning that work over. And it sounds like you're having success with that. You're seeing peers turn to other peers, which is what we want, right? We want that kind of culture and community in our classroom. What are some other examples? What does teacher footprint And what does productive struggle look like in your classroom in like those examples?
Right. And even in my non-ASL classes right now in our intro to teaching, my students were very uncomfortable with those open-ended questions. They weren't sure how to answer it. They were very uncomfortable with the kind of silence until somebody started to really open up and take hold of that metacognitive question that I love to just kind of put out there, get their feelers going. And so now they'll be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I talk too much. And so, can you go ahead and, they'll just kind of name it off and take leadership. And, you know, it's great because this is what we want. We want students to kind of learn from each other. And again, Barbara, to go back to what you and I were talking about as well, you're just kind of sitting there going, when do I jump in? But guess what? I don't have to. And, you're kind of on the edge of your seat when this first happens because you're like, wait, it's going a totally different direction. But then one live session, my students totally brought it back. And I've like flipped through the slides on the presentation and just said, look, you've already discussed this and you had no idea that this is what we had planned.
So awesome.
And so that was like the crowning moment.
So wonderful. Okay, I have to ask. You said that like like a student is almost the catalyst, like one person opens up. So how do you build an environment like to get that security to have one person just start the ball rolling? Like if I'm thinking of like how could I do that in my own session? What would you say?
Right. And again, it was a struggle. It didn't come easy. For me, I would actually just I would read the question, share my screen, but then kind of turn it off so that they didn't rely and just sit there and stare at my screen. And then I had another one of our fellow teacher peers have the suggestion of take a drink of water, just let them kind of sit in it. And I think for a big part of it too was, for me, I'm very much like, I'm a teacher. I need to be posed. I need to be, composed and poised and not show any kind of mistakes. And I think with me, just kind of, I get really kind of excited and talkative and weird. And so I get to kind of let that go a little bit and they can see that I'm not just the rigid, I'm going to just go through my presentation and you have to sit there and enjoy it or not. And so once they see that, like it's really not that scary. Like go ahead, talk. And so they love it. And I've had such great feedback from the students. So I think it's like Nolan, you said, creating culture and community. And I think that's exactly what happens. Like they get a little glimpse of who I really am deep down and not rigidity.
Right.
I think one of the really
Yeah.
exciting things too is like that culture, those kids take that culture outside of your classroom. Like we've talked about it, but I've seen students who come outside of your classroom and take that idea of like, I'm gonna have a camera on, I'm gonna participate, I can engage, I can ask questions, I can feel safe. So you're creating something that's not just within your room, but it's spreading outward to elite, which is really cool.
And I love that because we get so in our own little box, even if it's a Zoom box. And so it's great to hear that, what we do it matters and it's rippling and touching others.
It'd almost be beneficial if everyone could go through like a 2-week crash course with Rebecca and then enter into their classes with Elite so they can like get that part over with. Because I think, yeah, your students have really exemplified what it means to jump in.
And I think that's empowering. I wanted to add, not only is it like not, you use like the phrase not scary, but it's empowering, right? Like to have your teacher kind of like sit back and just let the students take it where where it wants to go. I love that. But I have another question for you. In what ways has reducing teacher footprint and facilitating opportunities for productive struggle influenced you as a teacher in your practice?
So for me, I found that it actually has become a lot faster and easier to do the lesson planning because we can take these open-ended questions. And again, my students have given such great feedback of, oh, well, what if we did this in our live session? Because they actually have enjoyed when we set up our real life scenarios. Like I had a virtual background at the doctor's office. So then we got to role play. And I think that helps too, because, okay, great. Instead of just showing me all the signs that I need to know, now let's make it useful, put it back on them. And so our whole live session was dedicated to students ordering off of a menu that I had created, and the other students had to kind of guess and take the orders and make sure that the order was correct with all the different modifications. And so I think that that has really helped me and influenced my prep, if you will.
Whoa,
Awesome.
that's amazing. I just going from like an educator where like I'm gonna give you the content and you have to learn from me to when you're accepting student feedback, like that's facilitating, right? That's really cool. Wow, that's powerful.
And even one today, it was really fun because they're getting used to even sentence starters. So not only are they learning ASL, well, now let's take it into English class. And little did you know that we're going to give you some sentences and you have to fill in the blanks. But now you get to learn ASL. Now you get to recognize, sentence structure. And that's what I love. And there was no hesitation. Earlier, it was just that, we're talking about opinions and how to express opinions in ASL. So, all right, I feel what because blank. And so I had one student who doesn't normally is not quick on the draw to like kind of draw out their voice, but right away they were active in the chat and I said, cool, let's learn these signs together. How would you sign it?
Because they're not only transferring like their own behavior, or they're
In a nutshell, they're not afraid to make mistakes.
yeah, but they're having to do two things. Like they're having to come out of their shell in the normal way that they're used to speaking, and then on top of it come out in a new language. And so to do both of that, that is a great platform for productive struggle for sure.
Can I ask a question? Has there been a time where you're like, or I don't know, how do you handle it mentally when you're like, this kid is struggling, like I'm ready to swoop, let me just save them, and like, what do you tell yourself, or like, you're gonna wait an hour, like how do you kind of know when to step back and step in?
And ASL is actually quite a little bit easier, I would say, because their expression starts to change and they're looking at their hands and if they just don't quite have that yet. So I'll give like the hand shape. I'll hold up my hands and be like, all right, we start with this one. And then that kind of refreshes their memory and then they can trust the process. So and then that with the teaching with intention, then I'm much more intentional about the support I give. So I'm not quite giving you the answer, but let's start with this. And then if we're absolutely stuck, then of course I'll jump in. So, but it's like getting the feel for it, or that little rhythm. And it's super, I don't know, it's inspiring to me when students are like, oh, I'll just ask so and so, or I'll just try it. And then I have a student who struggled with kind of retaining some of the memory, the muscle memory, as far as sign formation. So they would kind of spell out each and every word. And so that student has like far surpassed where they were and spelling out all the words. And so like I have seen that transformation. And so now, like we said, it's more than just a content deliverer. And so now it's a learning facilitator. So let go and let them take over.
So awesome. So Rebecca, in thinking about all of this, the question that I have is, what is your why?
My why would be I want to see the students succeed in whatever it is. So they have their confidence that they're gaining in ASL class, like we talked about. But now let's stretch it. Let's stretch them, have them go ahead and take on different challenges that they wouldn't have before, but because of their experience in their little ASL course, let's see where it propels them.
That's awesome.
I love that. Thank you. Just want to say thank you, Rebecca, for taking your time today to share your journey, your passion for student agency, and your why. I think we've learned a lot. I'm just like, the last thing I want to key in on is that idea of like content, the difference between content deliverer and learning facilitator. I think that's a really good just way to think about this and for something that for teachers to mull over. But thank you so much, Rebecca. It's been a pleasure having you on.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
What? I'm sorry. I've heard something, Rebecca. I just need clarification if this has really happened. Okay, someone said that like your Zoom shut down during your class and like you were kicked out of the class and your class kept going, and is that true? Is that attributed to kind of some of the reins that you've handed over, and what? Is that true?
Yeah, we were at the very beginning, and that was a crazy story. We randomly got a power outage here, and I was panicking, of course, because oh no, that learning facilitator hadn't quite happened yet. I was still the teacher, and so I just got so worried. And yes, I heard I had a supervisor step in into my Zoom, and they got to share what they've already learned with the supervisor who knows, maybe a few words. And so they just got to share what they were learning. And so that meant a lot that they stayed on. They didn't panic like I was panicking, you know. So that was a really fun, and that another reason of my why is like because the students stepped in when they needed to, they wanted to. It wasn't something that they had to do. They could have easily just left, just
Yeah.
pop off and leave, but they didn't.
Wow.
That's so great.
Thank you. I'll mark that off on my books. True, you know.
All right, well, thanks again, Rebecca.
Yeah.
We've really appreciated you being here with us today.
Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Rebecca.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh my gosh, so much to unpack there.
Yes.
I think one thing that I'm really latching on to is the two times where she described like that, like we're teachers, right? And we have this kind of, we come from a culture where teachers are in control, right? They're delivering everything. And there's a little bit of fear of letting go of that control. But she had two really cool stories that she let go of that control and the students rose to the occasion, right? Students they want to learn, they want to be successful, they want to grow. And if we give them that space and we trust them, they feel that trust. And I think that's really powerful.
It sounds like Elite X has been quite the transformative experience for Rebecca. And I loved, Barbara, that you asked her the question about the time she got kicked out of the room or whatever. And what a testament to the classroom she's running when the kids were just able to pick up and keep it going without her. It's awesome.
Right? She clearly sets a tone of openness, of vulnerability, of honesty. And I think you're right, Nolan. The kids really feel that. Like, okay, she trusts me in this area. It's okay to fail. It's okay to try something. I really think that's great.
And that when she said that, she, got the supervisor went in and then they took over the class, but she did mention that that was early on. And so the students weren't quite used to it yet, but that just goes to show you how much our students do want to be empowered. They want to take control of their learning. And that was just solid proof right away that they just dove in and took care of it. That's awesome.
Definitely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And such a reminder too, like that every time we step in to rescue them, right? Like we're stealing their power away from them. So really, yeah, she's shifted the power over to her students. I love it. I love Rebecca's
you're
story.
right, Morgan. That could be like even we're setting them back, like when she was saying that she would go back and watch the clips, like, oh, I could have said this, or oh, I could have not done that. And I think, yeah, that's exactly, it's like, oh no, I could have just let them go and they would have been just fine. So I think that's a struggle that we have, or at least I have. But
isn't that cool as teachers? We get to say, oh, I should have waited longer instead of like, oh, I got to get this done.
Yeah.
Like they're gonna get there, which is really cool. I like that.
yeah, definitely. Well, we leave you with one last question for you guys is what is your why? Thank you so much for watching.
Thanks, everyone.